So I just came from outside City Hall, and there was someone with a drawing of Marilyn Mosby, like, God bless Marilyn Mosby, and I got people on my Twitter feed this morning. It was just like, you are the youngest prosecutor of a major city in the country, and this morning there was this kind of like, you became this immediate icon. Like, did you expect the reaction to be what it has been?
No. At the end of the day, I'm here to do my job. And it's about applying justice fairly and equally to those with or without a badge. I didn't do anything differently in this case than I would do in any other case.
It is different, though, because the context, right? I mean, you made an announcement on this case in a way that you're not going to go and announce every...
Well, I mean, in the context of the public concern, I think your job as a prosecutor, if you have to alleviate that sort of concern, you should do that. And I did that. I've had some other really high-profile cases where I've had to have press conferences. So did I treat this case any differently in the pursuit of justice? No, I didn't.
When you made the announcement this morning, how much thought went into the words you chose, the characterization you gave, the detail you offered, all of that? I mean, I think people were surprised. There was this audible gasp when you announced there were charges. How kind of planned out was that moment?
Well, I can tell you that from the very beginning, I put together an investigative team who, from the time that we learned of this tragic event, we went out to the scene, we started canvassing the area, speaking to witnesses, we reviewed hours and hours of video surveillance. We reviewed hours and hours of statements in this case, medical records. This wasn't something that was really quick, fast, and in a hurry or a rush to judgment. This was a thorough investigation that we were conducting in parallel with the police department. So the information that was provided to us yesterday by the police department is information we already knew.
Did you learn, I was in Ferguson on the night that Bob McCullough announced that there would be no indictment for Darren Wilson, the shooting of Michael Brown. Obviously, very different set of facts, so I don't want to compare them factually. But in terms of the atmospherics of how he chose to do that announcement and when he did it, and your announcement today, do you feel like you've learned lessons from watching these high-profile cases in Ferguson, New York, and other places?
I wouldn't say learn lessons. I think that I'm just a different prosecutor. My pursuit is going to be at all times to be transparent and to pursue justice. Justice on behalf of the victims, justice on behalf of the defendants, and I recognize that my decisions have collateral consequences on our community. So in the end, it's just our approach is different. Well,
there's one similarity here, which I thought was notable, is that in Ferguson, Bob McCullough came from a long line of law enforcement, family of law enforcement. Father was an officer killed in the line of duty. You come from a long line of law enforcement. You talked about that today. How much does that shape and form the way that you do this job?
I think every perspective that you have shapes the person that you are, right? I come from 5 generations of police officers. My mother, my father, my grandfather, my great uncles. Law enforcement is pretty much instilled within my being. But I understand and respect that most and majority of police officers are risking their lives day in and day out. They're taking time and sacrificing time away from their families. And they're on the streets of not just Baltimore, but every urban city across America and risking their lives for the betterment of communities. Recognizing that, because that's what my family did, I also recognize that there are those individuals who usurp their authority, who will go above and beyond and pretty much go past the public trust. And when they do that, you have to hold those individuals accountable, because if you don't, they do a disservice to those really hardworking police officers.
But you also know the culture of police can often look very much askance at people that talk out of turn, that are not loyal to their fellow officers. I mean, there's a case in Baltimore of a man who testified against a fellow officer, found a dead rat on his windshield. There's a pending lawsuit on that. I mean, are you worried about or prepared for the kind of backlash that might be coming at you and your office?
What I can tell you is, at the end of the day, My office is an independent agency from the police department, and I was elected by the city and the constituents of Baltimore City to pursue justice. That's my mission as a prosecutor, to seek justice over convictions. So am I worried about any sort of backlash? No, absolutely not. Have I done anything that's unfair or rushed? Absolutely not. This was a thorough investigation. We applied the facts to the law, and we've pursued this case, and I think fairly and inappropriately.
Fraternal Order Police says it is a rush to judgment. They say that the support of one of the Gray family attorneys for your election is a conflict of interest, and they're calling for a special prosecutor.
And that's absolutely absurd. When you have a special prosecutor, where's the accountability? Someone politically is going to appoint someone else, and who do you hold accountable? The constituents of Baltimore City elected me to exercise my discretion and to apply justice fairly and equally with or without a badge. With reference to a conflict of interest, there is no conflict of interest. My husband represents the district in which I live. I am the Baltimore City State's attorney. I represent his district and 13 other districts throughout the city. I prosecute crimes there. I don't have to turn on the news and open up the newspaper in order to see the crime impacting my community. All I have to do is open up the door. Okay. So there is no conflict.
So then what happens? I mean, I don't know if you paid attention to what happened in New York. The wake of Eric Garner, the mayor had some strong comments about Eric Garner. There was 2 police officers who were murdered. It was a sort of horrific act. Really just gutted the city. The police department basically launched an open revolt against the mayor. I mean, they've turned their back at funerals. I mean, if you come in next week and you start hearing from your lawyers that these cops aren't showing up to testify on court dates that you need to make your cases, like, what are you going to do? You
hold them accountable. That's unacceptable. I mean, you have to change the culture, and it starts with accountability. You asked me about the conflict of interest with reference to the family attorney. There is no conflict of interest. The family, Mr. Gray's family attorney donated to my campaign and supported me. I had over 700 people who donated to my campaign, including the FOP. So I don't see how there's any sort of conflict of interest with reference to that.
I talked to 3 gentlemen right before I came here, from West Baltimore. And they said, oh, they talked about Freddie Gray in the van. They said, that's just the thing, rough rides. Cops don't like to run. You make them run, they're gonna give you a rough ride. And I've talked to multiple people who just say, yeah, it's a practice. You get thrown in the van, they take those hard turns, they knock you around, you get out. It doesn't strike me or anyone, I think, that this is the first time this kind of thing has happened.
Well, I can't tell you whether this is the first time that it happened. I can't even tell you if this is what happened in this particular case, because I'm prevented from doing so. But you have to, at some point, change the culture of what's happening in the police department. And the way that you do that is by holding them accountable.
So let me be more specific. You have 6 officers who've been charged today. Those officers presumably have been involved in arrests or have acted as witnesses for cases your office is bringing now or has brought in the last 4 months you've been in office. Are those going to be, is there going to be a review of those cases? Do you trust, given what we know from the police report, which was not accurate, particularly about the knife, do you trust the information you have from those officers?
What I can say to you is that I can't sit up here and tell you what I will do in these particular cases. These are accusations at this point. There's a presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and to be fair and impartial in this process, I can't give you my opinion as to these particular officers.
Right, but my question is, do you have confidence that the information they have provided to your office upon which you have made cases, presumably your lawyers have made cases off these officers?
But you're asking me to comment on the individuals that are currently pending, and I can't do that.
Some of the people I've talked to fear there will be retribution, essentially, not against you by Baltimore police, but against people in West Baltimore. The Baltimore police in the streets are going to be angry. They're going to feel like they've been shown up or they've been exposed in some way. What do you say to those citizens? Is that a rational fear?
And what I can say is that I think that we've sent a very clear message that that sort of culture is not going to be tolerated in Baltimore City, period.
Final question for you.
Yes.
Does Baltimore prosecute too many people? Does it arrest? Does it arrest?
Unfortunately, we have too much crime.
Right.
I agree. And I have over 40,000 cases in district court, 7,000 that are prayed a jury trial into circuit court, misdemeanors, and over 5,000 felonies a year. So yeah, we do have too much crime. The reason why I said to the young people, you know, this is your moment. This is a movement. Let's be productive. Let's start to address some of the systemic issues within our communities. Let's utilize this moment and do something about it. To have over 235 murders a year, we need to be as outraged. That's unacceptable. And when I said to the young people, let's capitalize off this, our time is now, that's what I meant.